Hello, and welcome to the Stat Nerd Draft Report. I'm your host, Patrick Oxford, and today I'm being joined by Eustacchio, or as you may know him, at EVR1022 on Twitter. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, Patrick?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's just not a great day here because of the rain, but I'm making it a great day. I'm being productive, and that's what you got to make every day about.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, so today we're here to do a lottery mock draft. We had the Real GM's site spit out a lottery order for us. You can go ahead and find that lottery order in the description, probably on YouTube, but if we get it on any other platforms, go ahead and look for the description on there for the lottery order, or you can just listen to the pod and find out on the fly. All right, so because Eustacchio has a dog in the fight for now and the Cavaliers, and they're an odd-numbered pick, I'm going to go ahead and take those odd-numbered picks, and he's going to go ahead and go with the even-numbered ones. All right, so the first pick, Orlando Magic. And for the Magic, I'm going to go ahead and take the easy pick in Luka Doncic.
Yep, that's an easy one at the top for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that they have to really think too hard about this. It fits what I think they want to do in the future going forward. Putting him at the 3 next to Gordon and Isaac, or maybe the 2 if they have another 3, a 3D, wherever you want to put them on the 2-3. And then, Peyton's got to go, I think, to make that fit. But as far as long-term, I think Peyton's probably out of their plans anyways.
Yeah, I agree. He's a solid enough starting point guard for now, but long-term, he's really not going to take them anywhere. Luka has a lot more upside, obviously, and you want him to be on ball as much as possible. So getting rid of Elfrid Payton seems like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe just not even getting him to the next contract, whatever. He's still on his first or second? Is he on his second now? I don't even know.
He is still on this rookie deal. His qualifying offer will come up this summer. So if you take a cheap deal, you could sign and trade him or just let him go as an RFA.
I'd have to think long and hard about just cutting ties if I'm them. But what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. They have quite a bit of money tied up. $17 million going to Biyombo, $17 million to Fournier. Still have Vucevic, nearly $13 million there. So I think you just have to let him walk at this point or find a sign and trade deal to get some value in return for him.
Yeah, sounds like we're in agreement there. We can go ahead and move on to your first pick, the second pick in the draft, the Atlanta Hawks. Which direction are you going here?
This was a tough one. I think the number 2 talent in the draft is probably Trae Young, but for a variety of roster fit and draft reasons, I'm going to pick Jaren Jackson Jr. for the Atlanta Hawks. The reason I'm going that direction is in part because of the pieces they already have on the roster. I like Prince at small forward long term. John Collins looks promising as a rookie, and Jaren Jackson would work really nicely next to him. So that would give you a small forward, power forward, center combo for several years that you can build around. And Schroeder isn't the best point guard out there, but he's 24 and he's not terrible. If you can make him work, why not? So at least it gives him a chance to develop further and become their starting point guard of the future. The other half is they still have 3 more picks in this draft. One will be about 25 or 26. The other one, 29 or 30 from Houston, and their own second-round pick, which will be between 31 and 33. The depth of this draft, I really like the guard and wing depth of it, but the big men, I think it drops off a lot once you get outside the top 15, maybe top 20. So I think it opens up better options for their other 3 picks in the draft by picking the guy who really makes it all fit together in Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, hard to argue with that logic. I really am a big fan of Jaren Jackson Jr. He's really what you want to see in a big today. He does everything on the court. I like it. Most of all, I like his lateral quickness, able to get on the perimeter, cause some havoc in the pick and roll, kind of like Miami Bosch. It's kind of the comp I've been going hard with on him. I'm going to stay going hard on it. And then, I see what you mean as far as fit. As far you could have gone Trae Young, but Schroeder is, I think, producing enough at the age he's at that you want to stay with him just for the fact that, I mean, it's a hard position to find talent at, but also Jaren Jackson's such a sure thing, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Trae Young is the type of player that you need to build your whole team around. And, I mean, that's a good thing because he's so good. But at the same time, ditching two of your four young players that are already on the roster and on good deals, I just think it makes more sense for the Hawks to take the big man that makes it all fit together really well.
I like that logic. All right. Want to go ahead and move on to the Sacramento Kings, which is going to be my pick, of course, because it's an odd-numbered pick. See, I wasn't sure which way you're going to go with the Hawks. I had the first, I think, real debate here because I think you knew where I was going with the Magic with my pick. It was a pretty easy one.
I think I'm going to have 100% of your picks predicted, right?
Maybe, man. We have a lot of conversations, so you really might just have me locked down at this point. I know, like, for a fact, you're not going to have Bagley going anytime soon. I think that's a given. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick Bagley here. I've been a big proponent of Bagley going to Sacramento just because of the fact that they're going to have a hole there. And I think Willie Cauley-Stein is the only player you can, like, for sure say is, like, starter level. Bogdan probably has an argument for that as well. But I think that people are maybe overrating him a little bit. I mean, they say, oh, look, look at his numbers. And his numbers are nice. And when you look at him, he is nice on the court, but he's also already 25. I'm not sure a lot of people realize that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like I could see him being a starter-level player, but I don't think it's a given by any means. So I'm going to go ahead and say Bagley is the pick for them instead of one of the big men. They can't give up on Fox yet just because I think there is no reason to give up on a point guard after year one in the NBA. It's too hard to play point guard in the NBA to just say, oh, if you don't pick it up in the first year, that's it. So I'd like to pick Young, but I'm going to have to go ahead and go Marvin Bagley III.
Okay. I don't know if I like that pick, but
yeah, I knew you wouldn't be a fan of it going in. I knew that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a bad pick. Bagley is going to be a very productive player for a long time in the NBA. He's going to put up big numbers, lots of points, lots of rebounds, but I just don't think that he's going to contribute to a playoff team that's among the top 4 seeds in their conference. I just don't see him being a building block that you can build a really successful team around, but he's a lot of fun to watch, and it's Sacramento, so they're probably not going to be winning anytime soon anyway.
All right. That does go into part of the logic. It's like, well, I do want to put myself in their shoes just a tiny bit. All right. So the number 4 pick, the Dallas Mavericks, over to you. Which way are you thinking?
Well, I did not predict your last pick correctly, so I did not expect Trae Young to be available here. I do like Dennis Smith Jr. on their roster, but Trae Young is so good. I'm still going to go with DeAndre Ayton, though. I think it makes a lot of sense with Dennis Smith Jr. He's really the only long-term piece I like a lot on their roster. Harrison Barnes, I guess, will probably be there for a while, too. I think he fits really well with the pieces they have. He gives them a defensive anchor and, like, an incredible rim runner to work with Dennis Smith in the pick and roll. So I think he makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, I mean, Ayton, I think, is the logical pick. Even with Young on the board, like, Dennis Smith Jr. has been absolutely killing it this year. And so, I mean, like, I totally see where you're going with the Ayton pick. I think you thought I was going to go Young there for sure. It's a matter of Ayton is just a really good fit in Carlisle's system. I was writing about it a little bit today, and as far as maximizing space around Ayton, Carlisle is going to do that, for sure. And I think as far as teaching Ayton defensively, Ayton's not there defensively where he needs to be yet, but he definitely has the tools. And if there's there's probably maybe one or two coaches I might take over Carlisle, but he's definitely up in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlisle's probably my favorite coach in the league. I really like the schemes he runs. I mean, I think DeAndre Ayton can be a lot like a better version of what Tyson Chandler was for them when they won the championship 6 years ago. I think it makes a lot of sense for them.
Yeah, what do you think about Ayton's ability to expand his range?
I like his jump shot. I do. I was looking at his shooting numbers recently, and his mid-range percentage is actually really good. He makes 46% of his two-point jump shots, and the site has 71.6% for his free throw percentage, but that isn't including his 12-12 night from the line just the other day. So that's up to like 73 or 74%. He's got a good basis for his jump shot. The three-point range, it's still a work in progress, but I expect that'll be there down the road.
Yeah, at least the corner three I would expect. I mean, maybe not the above the break threes, but even just the corner three has tons of utility. So
yeah.
So it's hard to not see how Carlisle could just use him in just a ton of ways to really make life difficult on some of these other up and coming centers.
Yeah, absolutely. His potential is through the roof, really. His hand-eye coordination at the size and the athleticism level that he has, it's almost unprecedented. It's his basketball IQ needs work, but who better to teach him than Rick Carlisle? So,
exactly. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next pick, which is going to be the Phoenix Suns. And Devin Booker right now is just absolutely giddy as they select Trae Young out of Oklahoma. I think the Phoenix Suns would be ecstatic to get Young here. Defensively, it's probably going to be the worst backcourt in the league for the foreseeable future. But offensively, wow, it's just explosiveness.
Yeah, that will be an amazing offensive pairing. I mean, they'll run a lot of teams off the floor with that. I mean, it probably would be one of the top 3 jump shooting pairings in the league, I would think.
Well, and being one of the top 3 jump shooting teams or jump shooting backcourts in the league probably means historically too, just with how good the jump shooting is in the league right now.
Yeah. And so, I like that pick a lot for them. And having that spacing from Booker and from Young will make things easier for their first-round pick from last year that's struggling a little bit right now. Josh Jackson, his shooting numbers are not too good, but giving him the space to operate inside the arc, I think that would help open things up a lot for him, make use of his finishing and his playmaking ability.
Yeah, I'm not very high on Jackson, but I think that if he does have the playmaking that some of the people that are higher on him think that he has that kind of potential, then that kind of unlocks the Trae Young playing off the ball like Steph Curry as well in this pairing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have anything else to say about that, so we can go ahead and go on to the Memphis Grizzlies at 6. Who do you have them selecting here?
This was a tough one. Michael Porter Jr. provides the best upside on the board, in my opinion, right now, but I think that Mikal Bridges is just a perfect fit for the Memphis Grizzlies culture. He's really good defensively. He could provide something that they're lacking with Tony Allen no longer there. And he would be a good fit piece short term while Mike Conley and Marc Gasol are still on those big contracts. And long term, he could develop into what they build around for their next playoff team.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me there as far as the culture. I didn't see you going that way, but now that you went that way and, explained your logic, I'm like, yeah, I totally see it. So I think that Bridges probably allows them, if they want to go ahead and trade Gasol and Conley, or at least one of them, to go ahead and keep their pick next year, because next year is protected 1-8 to the Celtics. And
okay, right.
Holding on to that pick next year is going to be pretty big. The year after that, it's 1-6, so I think it's a little bit less likely that they're able to go ahead and say in like the bottom 8 and then the bottom 6 the next year, because I mean you figure whoever they're going to get next year, or the year after the Bridges in this hypothetical, would probably be hopefully good enough to get them out of that bottom six. But if it's not, I mean, that's just another year. I guess the Celtics have to wait. But that also does limit the Grizzlies in terms of what they can trade. After that pick, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is going to be a fun time for me, right? There's actually a lot of players I did not expect to be on the board here on the board. And I think the Cavaliers right now, I'm assuming that they're not going to have like just a promise from LeBron at draft time that he's saying. So you have to operate under the assumption that LeBron's leaving, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
I think you have to make the best pitch you can for him to stay, to be honest. But I don't think you can count on that, though.
Okay, I'm not sure you're going to like this pick then. Because I'm going to go ahead and go with Michael Porter here.
Okay.
Playing the long game, they figure, hey, worst case scenario, we're going into a long rebuild. We don't have to rush Porter back. We can go ahead and wait on his back, make sure he's 120% before we bring him back. And we just go on with our life. If LeBron comes back, then Porter should be good by playoffs, I think, by any reasonable, even very pessimistic scenario. He'd be ready for the playoffs, and that is a weapon I think that would be useful in the playoffs, you know. It's hard to see rookies contributing, but Porter's a special player, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree that that's probably a good pick here. I mean, fit-wise, if LeBron did come back, it's not that good. I mean, you would have to run James, Porter, and Love as your front court, which defensively is not going to be great. And there's probably not enough shots to go around for the three of them. But he's the best talent on the board right now. And I don't think there's any other player that would come in and make an immediate impact on their title chances. I think the appeal of that pick, if LeBron's going to stay, would be to then trade Michael Porter for a player that could contribute now if LeBron comes back.
I'm with you on that. The appeal of the highest trade value is there. And I think the next best player on the board, in my opinion, in Miles Bridges, I mean, just the same positional worries as Porter.
Yeah.
So at that point,
really.
And I know you wouldn't like Sexton here. So at that point, like, do you reach for Bamba? That definitely doesn't keep LeBron interested, in my opinion.
No.
So I don't think there's a player on the board really that does the trick in terms of saying LeBron saying, "Wow, I need to stay and play with this player."
Yeah. I think if Mikal Bridges was on the board, he would be able to contribute right away on a good team.
Absolutely.
But with him going off at 6 in this mock, I think Porter makes sense.
Agreed. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to your next pick, the Chicago Bulls.
This is an interesting one. I really like their young power forward there, Markkanen. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm terrible with names, but
it's whatever, man.
His ability to stretch the floor gives them a lot of options as far as team building. And there's some really nice big men in this class. Mohamed Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. both would be really nice fits next to him. I think I'm going to go with Mohamed Bamba for this pick. He would give them the defensive anchor that they need. I was looking at his shooting splits earlier today. He's actually really effective around the rim. He's finishing at 77% around the rim. But right now, half of his field goal attempts are jump shots. 30% are two-point jumpers, and then 20% are three-point jumpers. And he's not a good jump shooter. But if you were to change his role and give him a more DeAndre Jordan type shot selection, I think he could be really effective in that role. And I think it would fit really well together.
Interesting. So that's what that tweet was about. Okay, see? Because we did our mock draft article the other day, and you had Wendell Carter here. So even going into this pick, there's no way I could have predicted you were going Bamba there. I'm glad you're keeping me on my toes here.
Yeah, I was a little bit low on him the last couple weeks. But, you know, I was trying to challenge that belief of mine, see if it really stood up to examination. And I just think the offensive environment in Texas there is so bad that it's making him look a lot worse than he really is. They have one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, so he's forced to take a lot of jumpers that really are not ideal shots for him.
Yeah, when you lay down, his locations and just how it doesn't really make sense for a player like him with what I perceive as not much shooting touch, and I think that's probably starting to become the popular opinion. I know earlier in the season people were flirting with the idea of him having some kind of corner three or something like that. I never bought in one bit. But next to Markkanen, he doesn't need to be because Markkanen provides the spacing of two bigs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see the jump shot developing ever with Bamba. I mean, maybe a bailout mid-range here and there, but it should be like less than 10% of his shots should be jumpers. Absolutely. And I mean, he has a 7'9" wingspan. Use that around the rim. So,
right?
I mean, it's not a hard formula there.
All right, on to the next pick. At number 9, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. And for the Sixers, let's see, we have quite a bit of talent on the board that I wasn't expecting, honestly. But I'm going to go with Miles Bridges. I think that he fits into what they're kind of trying to do is a bunch of big dudes who can play a little bit of defense, can handle the ball a little bit, and put opposing teams in tough situations.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Do you think that Bridges could guard like the shooting guard and small forward positions long term, or do you see him more as a power forward?
I think the small forward is within the realm of likely possibilities. Shooting guard, I think they should leave to Rocco.
Okay. And then Benson is probably guarding the power forward.
Yeah, I mean,
he's quick enough to go to the perimeter. But.
Yeah, he's quick enough. One of them probably should. I mean, one of Simmons and Bridges, I think, would be able to guard threes. I don't think it matters really which one of them, as long as one of them can get it done. And I've liked Simmons so far from what I've seen. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can be on board with that. I think Bridges would give them a little bit of shot creation that they're lacking when Joel Embiid is off the floor. He gives them a way to suck up that usage when Embiid is hurt or resting, and because they've been terrible when he's been off the floor this year. Yeah, I like that pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or you can go with Colin Sexton maybe if you just are already out on Fultz, which I don't blame you for.
I kind of am out on him already.
See, there you are. It's hard to see a jump shot going from what it's at now to anything like.
It looks so bad. It's tough too because he was so good in college.
It hurts to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to do now, but just hope that somehow he wakes up one morning and I guess he can lift his shoulder. Or can he just not lift his arm? Is that
Yeah, I heard something about him maybe having dislocated his shoulder, doing something off the court, and I think that makes sense with what we've seen from him because it looks like he can't lift his arm above shoulder level.
Yeah, it could be slipping in and out.
Yeah.
All right, well, on to the next pick, the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay. I kind of wanted Miles Bridges there, but since he's off the board,
with the recent rumors of Kemba.
Yeah. That's the other thing here. Like, half their team is on the trade block, so how do you figure what they're going to need? If Kemba gets traded, Colin Sexton would make a lot of sense, but if I were them, I probably would not trade Kemba Walker. I mean, he's the only thing propping their team up right now. I don't know. He's a really good player. I think he's still young enough that you can build around him for the next 4 or 5 years. So my inclination here would be to pick from Ohio State. I'm going to butcher his name, but Keita Bates-Diop, KBD.
I think you did fine.
Okay. So, yeah, I really like him as a prospect. Defensively, he is – I think he's one of the top 3 defensive prospects in this class. And he brings a lot to the table on offense, too. I think he's like a 30% usage player at Ohio State, and he's able to knock down the mid-range shot, knock down three-pointers, and he's really good driving to the basket. I think in the pros you would see his role diminish a little bit offensively, but he would still be able to contribute from all 3 levels, which I think would be important for Charlotte because they have a lot of one-dimensional players. And outside of Kemba Walker, they just don't have any threats on offense. So I think he would be a good fit there.
I mean, it's hard for me to argue with that besides the fact that you sniped me, but that's all right. I think that he's just the perfect Clifford player, really.
Yeah.
Like, I was toying with some ideas of Wendell Carter there because that's where I thought you were going to go there, and but KBD is definitely more the Steve Clifford. Let's grind it out. We're gonna go ahead and I mean, you could see him just playing the Marvin Williams role perfectly for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's more of like a floor than a ceiling, just for people not familiar with his game. But yeah, I just think that he's a very clear option there, and if they're not looking to go somewhere else at center, because I mean, I think Cody Zeller is a pretty good option. I don't like Dwight Howard at all. I don't think he's conducive to winning basketball, but Cody Zeller is a nice option there. So if they wanted to stick with him, KBD all the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Could run a lineup next year of Kemba Walker, Malik Monk, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, KBD, and Cody Zeller, and I think that would be a really solid lineup all the way through.
Yeah, I'm still like maybe Kidd-Gilchrist should go to the bench and play with Kaminsky as the 4, like Kidd-Gilchrist at the 4, Kaminsky at the 5. But I mean, maybe he's the option at the 3. I don't like Dwayne Bacon as much as their coaching staff seems to, but
yeah, I'm not that high on him either. You could bench Gilchrist, but I think with how many great wings there are in the league today, he's really useful defensively.
Isn't that what KBD's for?
I mean, yes, but if you have 2 really effective forwards on defense, I think you can build an elite defense around the 2 of them.
That's fair.
One of them can help patch holes here and there, but I don't think that it would be an ordinary defensive unit with, say, Bacon or Marvin Williams paired with one of those 2. With both of them, I think you could build an elite unit, and then you just trust Kemba Walker to make it work on the other end.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're probably with their current roster plus this hypothetical, Kidd-Gilchrist is probably the best option there. You're right. All right, next up we have the Utah Jazz. I was going to go KBD, but I will go Colin Sexton. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is a full-time point guard. I think that he can be a part-time point guard, and Colin Sexton is not the greatest playmaker, but again, maybe you go 2 secondary ball handlers. I know it hasn't worked at some points in the past for some teams, having 2 kind of iffy, can they be primary, can they be secondary creators, but that's what I'm going with on this, and it's what I've gone with before.
Yeah, I actually like that fit a lot. I think Sexton could work really well both on and off the ball. I was looking at his shooting splits earlier today, and I think he's only made 11 assisted jumpers this year, so pretty much everything he's done has been off the bounce. So even though his shooting numbers aren't overly impressive, I would expect that to go up if he can have another creator next to him that can set him up from time to time. The only issue in Utah for Colin Sexton would be that right now there's a severe lack of spacing with their front court, and he needs space to operate. He depends on getting to the rim and drawing fouls. So they need to find a stretch 4 to open the court up. But talent-wise, I think he's a home run at this point in the draft. I could see him going as high as 5 or 6 if the right team had the pick.
Yeah, I was tempted to go with him at 5 with Phoenix if Trae Young wasn't on the board. I was like, it's either that or maybe Wendell Carter, because I thought Wendell Carter and Phoenix was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I could see him in Phoenix for sure. I think that would be a good fit next to Devin Booker. So, yeah, I mean, at this point in the draft, he's the clear top talent. I think you have to take him, and then you figure out a way to make it work later.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Sexton's probably going to be a shooter, but even if he's not, Mitchell's already proven at this young age that he can play pretty well next to a non-shooter in Rubio. So, I mean, ideally you don't have him next to a non-shooter, but it's not the worst.
Yeah. I think it would make a good pairing long term, and especially because they are a defensive team first with Rudy Gobert anchoring that defense, and both of those guards are really athletic. They have nice wingspans. They could be very disruptive on the perimeter, knowing that they have that shot blocker behind them.
Yeah, they can play that super aggressively. New York Knicks are up next. Which way are you thinking here?
I'm going to take somebody more conservative and take Shake Milton here.
Okay.
He doesn't have the highest upside in the class, but this team is about Porzingis and finding the right pieces to fit around him. They drafted a point guard last year, and they just don't have much on the wing right now. Or I don't like Cantor there long term, so they need to find another big man. But I don't think Carter fits next to Porzingis, and so I think just getting a 3-and-D guy that has a little secondary creation in Shake Milton will help them to build a team long term. He's, I believe, a 42% shooter from range. He has a little bit of on the ball skill, and he has a big wingspan. So he can defend the 2, the 3, and I think he'll be a nice fit piece there long term.
I like that pick. Jackson Hoy has him at a 6'11.5 wingspan, so he definitely has that length. And him and Frank Ntilikina as your point guard and shooting guard, wow, that's just so much length around Porzingis already, the foundation you're building. I really like that pick. Looking at his playmaking, he kind of does make up for a little bit of what Ntilikina is lacking. He's currently has 4.4 passes out of the pick and roll leading to a shot per game, and they're yielding 1.215 points per possession according to Synergy. So I think at least a secondary ball handler. He could be even more than that.
Yeah, I think that he could. I mean, I'm not sold on him being a primary ball handler long term, but it's at least in the picture. And but I think you can count on him for definitely being a secondary ball handler, a good off-ball shooter, a good defender. And I think that high floor is valuable for the Knicks where they are in their rebuild. You don't want to miss on this pick for them.
Exactly. This is definitely going to be the last, or I'm not going to say definitely because it's the Knicks, but if you want Porzingis to not be throwing a fit, this is going to be the last time you're picking in the lottery if they're picking in the lottery this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be winning with a big man that good on the roster. So,
yeah, I think there are concerns as to his positionality and how to get the best usage out of him, both offensively and defensively at the same time. But this is a good step in terms of getting towards that.
Yeah, I think the key position for them will be getting that second big that really fits well with him to reach their long-term ceiling. But I just don't see anybody on the board who can be that guy. So leave it open for now and try to find it through trade or free agency later. And just put a lot of shooting out there.
Yeah, you were probably hoping I'd let Bagley fall here.
He would be a perfect fit there, but realistically, there's no way he's going to fall that far. But he would be ideal next to Porzingis. They would be destructive.
He really would be. All right, so next up we have the Pistons. For the Pistons, I have a couple different ways I can go here. I was kind of targeting either a point guard or kind of a 2-3 hybrid type player. So someone in that wing. I feel like Drummond's probably the way they're going to stay at center, and they're not gonna. You got to be particular with who you put at the 4. Tobias Harris is working there, and I think finding another player that can occasionally slide over there is possibly their primary objective. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Josh Okogie.
Oh, I like that pick. I like that.
Okogie has he's 6'4" and he has a 7-foot wingspan, according to Jackson Hoy's database. So I figure the 2 and the 3 is probably a given for in terms of just potential versatility. I mean, if he's just not a good defender, he's not a good defender. The stocks point to him being a good defender, so I'm pretty confident he will be, but I'm not going to say it's just like automatic like Mikal Bridges. I would probably bet a lot of money on him becoming a good defender.
Yeah. I think the tools are there. I think he maybe needs to become a little bit more disciplined, but I think he's a really good fit in Detroit. He can definitely shift between positions, give them that lineup flexibility they need, and I mean, he just has a really versatile skill set. So yeah, I like that pick.
Yeah, he's currently scoring 1.625 points per possession on catch and shoots. Only 2 possessions a game because he's got the ball in his hands a lot just to begin with. But that's just, wow, 99th percentile on that. 100th percentile on guarded catch and shoots.
Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, there's reason to think he's going to be a shooter. Over 40% from 3, over 80% from free throw line, high number of free throw attempts. Last up on the board is the Clippers. Which way are the Clippers going here?
Well, I think the pick here has to be Wendell Carter Jr.
Yep.
DeAndre Jordan is going to be gone either by the trade deadline or this summer. I would think. I don't see any reason for them to re-sign him. And so getting a center that fits well with Blake Griffin would be a priority. And Wendell Carter, I don't know that he's a perfect fit with Blake, but he definitely has some range on his jumper. Pretty good from the free throw line and mid-range, and on a very small sample, he's been good from 3-point range this year. I think he's shooting like 48%, but it's only 25 attempts. But the form looks good. I think he can be a reliable mid-range jump shooter at the very least to provide some space for Blake to attack the rim and be that primary distributor for them. I think it would be a better pairing at the very least than DeAndre Jordan, who can only operate in the paint. So, and it gives them a guy to build around long-term that is flexible with his skill set. He can score at least 2 levels, possibly 3 levels long-term. And he can block shots a little bit. He's not an elite shot blocker, but he should offer some rim protection. And his passing skills are terrible for a big man either.
I'm actually surprised he fell this far in our draft. I think it was probably just circumstance and not representative of what will happen in real life, because I am a big fan of his game, just the more I watch of him. I'm a believer in his three-point shot eventually developing, not just the corner 3. I think he's confident in his above-the-break 3, but it may not be on the guarded catch and shoots. But if the defense is out there rotating and, like you said, he's a good passer and he can pass off when the defense does rotate and he's smart with his attempts, which I do think he's been so far, then there's reason to believe that he could be a really useful, like you were saying, three-way player in terms of offensive scoring.
Yeah, he's actually been moving up my draft board a lot recently. I think in this draft, he fell a little bit because there's not a lot of good fits for him between 9 and 13, but I could see him going above that. I could see him breaking into the top 8. He just has a really diverse skill set that it works in the modern NBA. Whereas his teammate Marvin Bagley, it's harder to see him fitting into the current landscape. He kind of needs to play next to a shot blocker that also shoots 3-pointers, whereas Carter can play next to almost anybody. So it makes it a lot easier to build the team around him.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed with Carter's rebounding. He's playing next to an absolute vacuum in Bagley, and he's still grabbing his share. So I'm not
Yeah.
really concerned about him having trouble grabbing rebounds or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I agree. There's not many holes in his game at all.
All right. Well, this was awesome doing this with you, and I definitely plan to have you back. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Follow me on Twitter at EVR1022, and I occasionally write for my personal blog, thepickandroll.com. So check in there from time to time, and that's about it.
Yeah, definitely check out his writing. Great stuff. He gets into the nitty gritty, and he's really doing some good stuff. All right. Thank you, and have an excellent day, man.
You too. Thanks, Pat.